The bridge of the ESS horizon was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers. Captain Daniel Brooks stood in front of the main screen, staring at 3 alien ships. They were strange ships, made of something that looked like crystal. The light from the nearby star hit them and split into rainbow colors. The ships had been sitting there for 6 hours now. They did not move. They did not answer any calls from the horizon. Daniel looked around at his crew. He could see the worry on their faces. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat at the communication station. Her hands were shaking just a little. Ensign Kevin Moore was at the weapons station. His finger kept moving close to the firing button, then away, then close again. Navigator Lisa Grant was checking the escape routes for the 3rd time. Her face was pale. Daniel knew what they were all feeling. Fear. It filled the air like smoke. Everyone was scared, and they had good reason to be scared. The aliens were called Valorians. They had shown up 2 months ago near the human colonies at the edge of space. Since then, 17 human settlements had gone silent. No one knew what happened to the people there. No distress calls. No survivors. Just silence. Now the Valorians were here, facing the horizon. Commander Phillips stood next to Daniel. He was an older man with a gray beard. Daniel turned to him and asked quietly, "What do you see when you look at those ships?" Phillips did not answer right away. His eyes stayed on the screen. Finally, he said, "With death, sir." "I see death," Daniel nodded. "That is exactly right. They want us to see death. They want us to be afraid. That is why they are just sitting there doing nothing." Amy spoke up from her station. Her voice was soft. "It is working. I am scared." Daniel walked slowly across the bridge. He looked at each person on his crew. There were 23 people here. They were the best humans that Earth could send into space. They were smart, trained, and brave. But right now they were frozen with fear. Not fear of what had happened already, but fear of what might happen next. The unknown was always worse than the known. "Listen to me," Daniel said. His voice was calm but strong. Everyone looked at him. "Fear is just information. It tells us we are in danger. We already know that. The real question is, what are we going to do about it?" Before anyone could answer, the main screen suddenly came to life. A face appeared. At least Daniel thought it was a face. It was hard to tell with Valorians. The face was made of shapes that kept moving and changing. Colors pulsed across it in patterns that hurt to look at. "Human vessel." A voice came through the speakers. The ship's computer translated the alien language into English. The voice was flat with no emotion. "You show the weakness we expected. Your biological fear response has been recorded. Comply with our demands or you will be eliminated." Daniel felt his heart start to beat faster. His body wanted to run or fight. Every part of him was screaming to do something, anything. But he made himself breathe slowly. He made himself think clearly. "This is Captain Daniel Brooks of the Earth Space Service. What do you want from us?" "Subjugation. Your species will serve us or cease to exist. We have studied your kind for many years. You are ruled by fear. You will surrender to us." The screen went dark. The Valorian had ended the call. For a long moment, nobody on the bridge said anything. Then Amy broke the silence. "Sir, their weapons are powering up. They are getting ready to fire." Daniel looked at the tactical display. 3 alien ships against 1 human ship. The math was simple and terrible. If they fought, they would die. If they ran, they might die. If they surrendered, they would probably become slaves. "All hands battle stations," Daniel said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. "Helm, give me full power to the engines. Tactical, prepare to fire all weapons. Communications, send an emergency message to Fleet Command. Tell them the Valorians are wrong about us." Amy looked confused. "Wrong about what, sir?" Daniel smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made a hard choice. "They think fear makes us weak. They think we will give up because we are scared. They are about to learn something important about humans." "What is that, sir?" Kevin asked from the weapons station. "That fear does not make us weak. It makes us dangerous." The Horizon's engines roared to life. The ship began to move forward straight toward the 3 alien vessels. On the bridge, alarms started to sound. The Valorians were firing their weapons. Energy blasts streaked through space toward the human ship. "Evasive maneuvers," Daniel ordered. "Return fire." Lisa sent the ship into a hard turn. The Valorian shots missed by meters. The Horizon's weapons fired back, bright beams of energy crossing the darkness of space. One shot hit the lead alien ship. Its shields flared with light. "Shields at 70%, Kevin reported. They hit us on the port side. More weapons fire came from the Valorians. The horizon shook as the shots hit home. Daniel held onto his chair to keep from falling. Sparks flew from a console on the left side of the bridge. "Shields at 40%, Kevin said. His voice was higher now, tight with fear. Daniel knew they could not win this fight. 3 against 1. The alien ships were bigger and had better weapons. But that did not matter. What mattered was the message they were sending. Not just to the Valorians, but to every human who would hear about this later. Humans did not surrender just because they were afraid. "Target the lead ship," Daniel ordered. "All weapons. Everything we have." "Sir, that will drain our power reserves," Phillips warned. "I know. Do it anyway." The Horizon fired every weapon it had. Missiles, energy beams, railgun rounds. All of it hit the lead Valorian ship at once. For a moment, the alien vessel was surrounded by explosions and light. When the light cleared, the ship was badly damaged. Part of its crystal hull was shattered. It began to drift, powerless. The crew cheered. They had hurt the enemy, but their celebration was short. The other 2 Valorian ships opened fire together. The Horizon took both shots directly. "Shields down," Kevin reported. "Hull breach on decks 3 and 4. Life support failing." Alarms were screaming now. Red lights flashed all over the bridge. Daniel could hear the ship itself groaning, metal bending and breaking under the damage. "Amy, did you send the message?" Daniel asked. "Yes, sir. Fleet Command received it." "Good." Daniel sat down in his captain's chair one last time. "Then they know." "They know we were scared, and they know we fought anyway." The 2 Valorian ships fired again. The Horizon exploded in a ball of fire and light. There were no survivors, but the message had been sent. And across human space from Earth to the furthest colonies, people heard what had happened. They heard that Captain Daniel Brooks and his crew had faced impossible odds. They heard that those 23 people had been afraid, terribly afraid, and had chosen to fight anyway. The Valorians had destroyed the Horizon, but they had not broken the human spirit. In fact, they had done the opposite. They had shown every human that fear was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Admiral George Clark stood at the head of the long table in the war room. His face looked tired and serious. Behind him, a holographic display showed the path of the Valorian fleet. Big red arrows pointed toward Earth. The display said 2 weeks until they arrived, maybe less. "Ladies and gentlemen," Clark said to the officers sitting around the table, "Dr. Price thinks she has a solution. I will be honest with you. It sounds like science fiction, but a lot of things that are real today sounded like science fiction once." "Doctor?" Helen walked to the front of the room. She connected her small computer to the main display. "What I'm about to propose will seem extreme." "It is extreme. But the Valorians have given us no other choice." She brought up the brain scans she had shown Ryan. "The Valorians feel fear differently than we do. Their fear is logical and measured. It fits the level of danger they face. Human fear is not like that. Human fear is overwhelming. It floods our whole body with chemicals and signals. From an efficiency standpoint, human fear is actually quite bad." "Get to the point." "Doctor," said Commander Patricia Hayes. She did not sound patient. "The point, Commander, is that we can turn human fear into a weapon. We can create a transmission that will make Valorian brains feel the same fear that human brains feel. We can make them feel what we feel every day." Nobody spoke. The room was completely silent. Finally, someone asked, "You want to scare them to death?" "Not to death, no. But I want to overwhelm their ability to process fear. Their brains are not built to handle the intensity of human fear. They will feel something they have never experienced before. They do not have the mental tools to deal with it." Admiral Clark leaned forward. His hands were flat on the table. "Will it work?" "I believe it will. We have enough Valorian brain tissue from the destroyed ship at the border. I have been running computer simulations for 2 weeks. If we send the right signal, it should trigger an overwhelming fear response in their brains." "But what good does that do?" asked Lieutenant Commander Paul Stevens. "Even if they are scared, they still have better weapons than us. They can still destroy us." Helen smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was a determined smile. That is where human psychology becomes important again. When humans feel overwhelming fear, we usually freeze at first. But then we either run away or we fight desperately. When animals feel overwhelming fear, they run. They are not built to fight while they are terrified. Only humans do that. "You are saying they will run away," Clark said slowly. "I am saying they will panic, and enemies who are panicking make mistakes. More importantly, Their whole understanding of humanity is wrong. They see us as fearful, so they think we are easy to control. When they experience real fear themselves, the kind that humans live with every day, their whole plan falls apart. Commander Hayes shook her head. This is insane. Yes, Helen agreed. But so is standing and fighting when the enemy has 5 times more ships than you. So is building cities in places where earthquakes happen. So is getting in the water when you cannot breathe underwater. Humans do insane things all the time. It is what we are good at. Despite the serious situation, a few officers smiled. Admiral Clark stood up. How long to build this weapon? It is not exactly a weapon. It is more like a transmission device. We use their own communication network against them. Every Valorian ship is connected to every other ship. They share data all the time. We hit one ship with the signal, and it spreads to all of them automatically. I can have a prototype ready in 1 week. Do it, Clark ordered. You can have any resources you need. Any people you need. We are betting everything on this. The meeting broke up. Officers left to do their jobs. Ryan came to stand next to Helen. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you afraid this will not work? Helen looked at the young private. She could see the fear in his eyes that he was trying to hide. She decided to be honest with him. Terrified, she said. But that has never stopped a human before. The next 7 days were the hardest of Helen's life. She worked 20 hours a day, sleeping only when her body forced her to. A team of scientists and engineers worked with her, building the device that would either save humanity or accomplish nothing. They called it the Phantom Array. The name came from an old human saying about phantom pain. Pain that felt real but came from something that was not there. The array would make the Valorians feel fear of something that did not exist. The device itself was not large. It fit in a container about the size of a suitcase, but the calculations behind it were incredibly complex. Helen had to map the Valorian fear response perfectly. Too weak and it would do nothing. Too strong and it might kill them, which would make humanity the monsters the Valorians claimed they were. She adjusted the signal strength over and over. She ran simulations until her eyes burned. She checked every calculation 3 times, then checked them again. On the 6th day, Ryan brought her food. She had forgotten to eat again. Doctor, you have to rest, he said. I will rest when this is done. If you collapse from exhaustion, it will never be done. Helen knew he was right. She forced herself to eat. The food tasted like nothing. Her mind was too focused on the work. Ryan, do you think I am doing the right thing? She asked suddenly. The young man looked surprised by the question. What do you mean? Using fear as a weapon, making them feel terror. Is that something humans should do? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Ma'am, they came to our worlds. They killed our people. They gave us a choice between slavery and death. You are giving us a third choice. Survival. I think that is the right thing. Helen nodded slowly. I hope you are right. On the 7th day, the Phantom Array was complete. Helen ran the final tests. Everything checked out. The device was ready. Now they just had to get it close enough to the Valorian fleet to use it. That was someone else's job. Helen's job was done. She had built the weapon. Now someone else would have to fire it. She delivered the device to Admiral Clark personally. He held the container carefully as if it might explode. This is it? He asked. This little box is going to save humanity? I hope so, Helen said. But Admiral, there is something you need to know. This is not a magic solution. The Phantom Array will make them panic. But panic is not the same as defeat. They might still fight. They might still fire their weapons. This just gives us a chance. A chance is more than we had yesterday, Clark said. He looked at the box for a long moment. Dr. Price, on behalf of humanity, thank you. Helen felt tears in her eyes. She was too tired to stop them. Just make it count, Admiral. Please make it count. That night, Helen stood at the window of her laboratory and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valorian fleet was coming, and somewhere between here and there, a human ship called the ESS Defiance was waiting for them. The Defiance would carry the Phantom Array. Captain Nicole Webb would activate it when the Valorians arrived. And then they would see if Helen's crazy idea worked. Helen pressed her hand against the cold window. She thought about all the humans who were depending on her, all the people on Earth who did not even know her name, all the children who might never grow up if this failed, all the futures that would end if she had made a mistake in her calculations. The fear was almost crushing. It made her chest tight and her hands shake. But she had done everything she could. She had taken her fear and turned it into action. She had felt the terror of failure and built something anyway. She had done what humans always did. Now it was time to see if being human was enough. Dr. Helen Price could not sleep. She sat in her laboratory on Europa Station, watching the news from Earth. The screens showed the same terrible story over and over. The Valorians were winning. They had destroyed 4 more human colonies in the week since Captain Brooks died. His sacrifice had bought humanity some time, but it was not enough. Now the aliens were sending messages to every human world. The message was simple and terrifying. Surrender or die. The Valorians said they had studied humans for decades. They said humans were controlled by their fears. They said humans were predictable and easy to manage. Helen turned away from the screens. She could not watch anymore. She had work to do. As the best-brained scientist that humanity had, the military had asked her to join a secret project. If humans could not win by fighting, maybe they could win by thinking. There was a knock at her door. "Dr. Price?" A young soldier stood there. His name was Private Ryan Foster. He looked nervous. "The Admiral wants your report." "Tell Admiral Clark I need more time," Helen said. She was looking at brain scans that floated in the air in front of her. Holograms of the human brain lit up in different colors. "Ma'am, we do not have more time. The Valorian fleet will reach Earth in 3 weeks." Helen sighed. She rubbed her eyes. They hurt from staring at screens for too many hours. The young man was right. 3 weeks until the final battle. 3 weeks until humanity's last stand. And here she was, trying to understand something that had puzzled humans since the beginning of time. Fear. "Ryan, come here," she said suddenly. "Look at this." The private walked over slowly. He stared at the complex patterns of light floating in the air. "This is a human brain when a person feels fear," Helen explained. She pointed to one area. "See this part? It is called the amygdala. It lights up very bright. Now look at this other scan." She moved her hand and a different image appeared. "This is a Valorian brain. We built this from the pieces of the ship that Captain Brooks destroyed. Do you see anything interesting?" Ryan looked carefully at the alien brain scan. "It looks similar but not the same." "Is that part their version of the amygdala?" "Very good. Yes, it is. And do you notice something else? It is much smaller than the human one. The Valorians feel fear, but it is not as strong as human fear. That is why they think they understand us. They have studied our fear and decided it is a weakness." "Is it not a weakness?" Ryan asked quietly. Helen smiled. "That is what everyone thinks. But they are wrong. Follow me." She led him to another part of her lab. Here many screens showed pictures from human history. Pictures of humans doing brave things even when they were afraid. The Valorians think fear makes humans weak and makes them surrender. But look at these pictures. Humans at Thermopylae. 300 men standing against thousands of enemies. Humans storming beaches in World War II while bullets flew at them. Humans getting into rockets and flying to the moon on top of giant bombs. Humans running into burning buildings to save people they have never met. She showed him more information. Humans have stronger fear than any other species we have ever found. That should make us the most cowardly species in the galaxy. But it does not. Do you want to know why? Ryan nodded. He could not look away. Because fear is not just about running away. It is about seeing danger and choosing what to do. And humans have something special. We can feel complete terror and still move forward. We can be afraid and still choose to act. "I do not understand," Ryan said. "The Valorians see fear as simple. Feel fear, then run away or give up. They built their whole plan around that idea. But human courage is not about not feeling fear. It is about acting even though you feel fear. We are not brave because we do not feel afraid. We are brave because we feel afraid and we do it anyway." Helen brought up another brain scan. This one showed many parts of the brain lighting up in order. When a human decides to act even though they are afraid, many parts of the brain work together. The amygdala yells danger, but another part called the prefrontal cortex thinks about options. Another part manages the fight between fear and duty. Another part thinks about what might happen in the future. It is beautiful, really. Like music made from terror and determination. "How does this help us fight the aliens?" Ryan asked. That was the important question. Helen turned to look at him. Her eyes were bright with an idea. "Because I think I know how to make the Valorians feel something they have never felt before." Real human-level fear. And I do not think they will know what to do with it. Ryan's eyes went wide. You can make them feel our fear? I think so. Look at this. Helen pulled up more scans. The Valorian brain has the same basic parts as a human brain. They are in different places and different sizes, but they work in similar ways. If I can create a signal that triggers a fear response in the human brain, I can adjust it to work on a Valorian brain. But why would that help? Because their brains are not built to handle the level of fear that humans feel. Imagine you have lived your whole life feeling only small amounts of fear, reasonable fear, logical fear. Then suddenly, you feel the full terror that a human feels when they think they are about to die. Your brain would not know what to do. You would panic. Helen pulled up a simulation on her screen. It showed a Valorian brain being hit with a fear signal. The brain lit up in red, then began to flash. This is what I think will happen. Overload. Too much fear for their brains to process. They will not be able to think clearly. They might not be able to fight at all. Ryan looked scared and excited at the same time. Can you really build something like this? I think so. But I need time, and resources, and a lot of help. Helen looked at the young soldier. Are you willing to help me? Ryan stood up straighter. Helen could see the fear in his eyes, but she could also see something else, determination, the thing that made humans special. Yes, ma'am. What do you need me to do? Helen smiled. First, get me a meeting with Admiral Clark. Tell him I have a plan. Tell him it is crazy, but it might work. Tell him we are going to do something the Valorians never expected. What is that? We are going to show them what it really means to be human. We are going to show them what it is like to live with fear every single day and still keep going. We are going to teach them that fear is not just a weakness. It is also a weapon. Ryan hurried out of the lab to deliver the message. Helen turned back to her work. She had 3 weeks to build something that had never been built before, something that would take humanity's greatest weakness and turn it into a weapon. She was terrified that it would not work, terrified that she would fail, terrified that humanity would be destroyed because she had promised something she could not deliver. But she pushed the fear aside and got to work. Because that was what humans did. They felt the fear, they acknowledged it, and then they did the work anyway. Outside her window, Europa's ice-covered surface stretched to the horizon. Beyond that, Jupiter hung in space like a giant storm. And beyond that, somewhere in the darkness, the Valorian fleet was coming. 3 weeks. That was all the time she had. 3 weeks to save humanity. Helen pulled up her work files and began to type. Her hands were shaking a little. But they kept moving. One word after another, one calculation after another. One step closer to an idea that might save everyone or might doom them all. She did not know if it would work. But she knew she had to try. That was the human way. Try even when success seemed impossible. Act even when fear said to freeze. Hope even when hope seemed foolish. 3 weeks until the end of the world, or 3 weeks until humanity showed the galaxy what they were really made of. 6 months had passed since the day that historians were already calling the terror transmission. Dr. Helen Price sat in her laboratory on Europa Station, looking at data on her screens. The Valorian fleet had scattered to the far reaches of space. Intelligence reports said they were going through some kind of major change in their society. They were rethinking everything they thought they knew about the universe. But what interested Helen more were the messages that humanity had started receiving from other alien species. The galaxy, it turned out, had been watching. And now they wanted to talk. Dr. Price? Ryan Foster entered the lab. He was a lieutenant now, promoted after his work on the Phantom Array project. He carried a computer pad. You asked for the latest intelligence reports. Thank you, Ryan. Helen took the pad and began reading. The Valorians had made contact with something called the Galactic Council. This was a group of spacefaring species that worked together. Humans had not even known the council existed until now. The Valorians had filed a formal complaint against humanity. They called the Phantom Array a cruel and inhumane weapon. They demanded that it be banned and that humanity be punished for using it. The complaint had been rejected. Helen read the council's response for the 4th time. It was fascinating. It showed that someone out there in the galaxy actually understood humans. The Valorian Collective claims that humanity deployed a psychological weapon of unprecedented cruelty. They say this weapon induced a fear response that their species is not equipped to process. After reviewing humanity's neurological data and psychological history, This council finds that humanity did not deploy a weapon, but rather shared an experience. Helen smiled as she read the next part. The level of fear experienced by Valorian forces during the incident is consistent with baseline anxiety levels experienced by average humans during normal daily activities. That humanity has evolved to function while carrying this level of threat awareness constantly is remarkable. That they chose to share this experience with a species attempting to conquer them shows remarkable restraint. Furthermore, the Valorian claim that humans are ruled by fear is rejected by this council. Evidence suggests humans are the only known species capable of consistent voluntary action in opposition to fear responses. This council extends an invitation to humanity to join as a member species. Ryan looked over her shoulder at the screen. We are famous now. The species that weaponized anxiety. Not quite, Helen corrected him. We are the species that lives with anxiety every day and still manages to be brave. There is a big difference. She pulled up a new display. It showed brain scans from dozens of different alien species. The Galactic Council had sent them over as part of the membership process. Helen had been studying them for weeks. Look at this, Ryan. Humans have the strongest fear response of any known spacefaring civilization. Our fear is more intense, more overwhelming, and more constant than any other species. That sounds like a bad thing, Ryan said. That is what I thought too. But look at this other measurement. She highlighted another set of data. This measures what the Council calls fear override behavior, acting despite being afraid. And humans have the highest rate of this too, by a lot. Ryan stared at the numbers. So we are the most scared and the most brave at the same time? Exactly. Other species feel less fear, so being brave is easier for them. But humans feel intense fear all the time. And we still explore, we still take risks, we still stand up to bullies and protect the weak. We still build and create and love even knowing that everything can be destroyed or lost. Helen stood and walked to the window. Outside, Jupiter's massive storm swirled in bands of color. The Valorians studied us for decades. They saw our fear and thought they understood us. They did not realize that fear is just one half of the equation. The other half is choice. Choice? Ryan asked. Every day humans make choices. We choose to drive cars even though we know we could crash. We choose to fly in planes even though we know we could fall. We choose to love people even though we know we might lose them. We choose to have children even though we know they might suffer. We choose to build things even though we know they might be destroyed. We choose to explore even though we know we might never come home. She turned back to face Ryan. The Valorians experience fear as a command. When they feel it, they must obey it. But humans experience fear as information. We feel it, we acknowledge it, and then we decide what to do about it. That is the difference. Is that why they ran away? Ryan asked. Because they do not know how to choose? Partly, but also because experiencing true fear, the kind humans live with every single day, it shattered their understanding of us. They thought we were weak. Then they felt what we feel, and they realized we are not weak at all. We are terrified all the time and we still stand our ground. We still fight for what matters. That is not weakness. That is something they had never encountered before. Helen sat back down at her desk. She pulled up files on humanity's response to the Valorian invasion, stories of courage and sacrifice. Captain Daniel Brooks taking on 3 ships with 1. Her own gamble on an untested idea. Captain Nicole Webb standing at the edge of extinction and still making jokes. The other species in the galaxy, Helen continued, they are brave because they are not afraid. They do not feel the threat the way we do. Their amygdalas are smaller. Their fear response is muted. So being courageous is relatively easy for them. But humans, she looked at Ryan with intensity. Humans are brave because we are afraid. We feel the full weight of every possible danger. We imagine every terrible outcome. We know exactly what we are risking. And we do it anyway. That is real courage. That is what makes us special. Ryan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, so what happens now? Do we join the Galactic Council? Yes, I already sent a message to Admiral Clark recommending that we accept the invitation. Helen pulled up the formal invitation on her screen. It was written in many languages, including English now. And what do we do as members of this council? Helen smiled. We teach them something they have never understood. We teach them that fear is not the opposite of courage. It is the price of courage. And humanity has been paying that price since the very first human looked at a predator and decided to throw a rock instead of running away. She typed a short message and sent it to Admiral Clark, just 3 words, we accept. Humanity is in. The message went through the quantum network, traveling at speeds faster than light. It reached Earth in seconds. Within hours, the news was spreading across every human world. Humanity had been invited to join the galactic community. The species that everyone thought was weak had proven to be something else entirely. On Earth, people celebrated. On Mars and Europa and Titan, people celebrated. On the colonies at the edge of space, people celebrated. They had survived. They had won. They had shown the galaxy who they really were. But as Helen watched the celebrations on the news screens, she knew something that most people did not understand yet. The hard part was not over. It was just beginning. Ryan, do you know what the hardest thing about joining the galactic community will be? She asked. No, ma'am. What? Meeting new species. Exploring new worlds. Facing new dangers. Every single one of those things will be terrifying. We will be afraid every step of the way. But we will do it anyway, Ryan said. It was not a question. Exactly. We will do it anyway. Because that is what humans do. We feel fear. We acknowledge it. And then we move forward despite it. Helen looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there were hundreds of alien species, thousands of worlds, millions of unknowns. Every single one of them represented something to be afraid of. And humanity would explore all of it. They would meet the aliens, even though aliens had tried to conquer them. They would explore the worlds, even though some of those worlds would be dangerous. They would learn new things, even though new knowledge often brought new fears. Because being human meant living with fear and choosing courage. It meant feeling terrified and acting anyway. It meant carrying the weight of anxiety every single day and still building a future. The Valorians had wanted to understand humanity by studying their fear. They had failed because they only looked at half the picture. They saw the fear but not the choice. They saw the weakness but not the strength that came from overcoming weakness every single day. Now the rest of the galaxy was watching. They were waiting to see what humanity would do next. Would they hide behind their fear? Would they stay safe on their own worlds? Or would they do what humans always did? Would they feel the fear and explore anyway? Would they be terrified and make friends anyway? Would they face the unknown and welcome it anyway? Helen already knew the answer. She had always known the answer. Humans would go forward. They would meet the aliens. They would explore the worlds. They would learn and grow and build. And they would be afraid every step of the way. Because that was what it meant to be human. To feel the fear. To acknowledge the danger. And to choose courage anyway. Not because fear did not matter, but because courage mattered more. Helen turned off her screens and stood up. She was tired. It had been a long 6 months. A long year. A long fight for survival. But they had survived. And now they had a whole galaxy to explore. She smiled. The thought was terrifying. The ESS Defiance floated in space at the edge of Earth's defensive line. It was the last ship between humanity and extinction. Captain Nicole Webb stood on the bridge and watched the Valorian fleet approach on the main screen. There were 12 huge ships, each one 3 times bigger than the Defiance. They had weapons that could destroy the human ship in seconds. In Nicole's ready room, locked in a strong container, was Dr. Price's device. The Phantom Array. It was humanity's last hope. "They are calling us," said Ensign Chris Bailey from the communications station. "Put it on screen." The Valorian appeared. Its face was made of moving geometric shapes. Nicole had learned that certain patterns meant certain emotions. Right now, the pattern showed satisfaction. The Valorian was happy, human vessel. "Stand down. Your species' time of independence ends today. You will surrender." Nicole took a breath. She had thought about what she would say when this moment came. "This is Captain Nicole Webb. I will be honest with you. We are terrified. Absolutely scared out of our minds." The Valorian's patterns pulsed with approval. "Finally, your kind shows wisdom. Fear is the correct response. You will order your world to surrender now." "I did not say we were surrendering," Nicole replied calmly. "I said we were afraid. Those are 2 different things. You speak nonsense. Fear compels surrender. It is the natural response. For you, maybe. For humans, fear is just Tuesday. We are scared every day and we keep going anyway." Nicole cut the transmission. She turned to face her crew. "All hands, this is the captain. In 30 seconds, we are going to activate Dr. Price's device. I will not lie to you. We do not know for sure if this will work. We are taking humanity's greatest weakness and trying to turn it into a weapon. That is either brilliant or completely crazy." She paused and looked at each face on her bridge. There was Ensign Chris Bailey, barely 22 years old. Lieutenant Marcus Cole at Tactical, a veteran of 10 years. Navigator Susan Price, no relation to the doctor, with steady hands and a steadier mind. All of them were afraid. All of them were ready. The Valorians think they understand us because they have seen us afraid. They do not realize that being afraid is our natural state. We are scared of the dark. Scared of heights. Scared of deep water. Scared of being alone. Scared of dying. Scared of living wrong. We carry fear with us every single day, and we still build starships. We still explore the galaxy. We still stand here at the edge of extinction and refuse to give up. Nicole walked to her command chair. Her hand moved to the activation control. They wanted to study human fear. Let us give them a proper education. Activate the Phantom Array. She pressed the button. The device in her ready room powered up. It sent out a signal that moved faster than light through the quantum communication network that connected all the Valorian ships. The signal was invisible. Silent. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the lead Valorian ship suddenly jerked to the side. It turned sharply, moving away from its formation. The movement was wild and uncontrolled. "Captain, I am reading massive power fluctuations in their fleet," Marcus reported from the tactical station. His voice was excited. "Their formation is breaking apart." On the screen, Nicole watched as the orderly Valorian advance fell apart. Ships turned in random directions. Some flew away at full speed. Others fired their weapons at nothing, at empty space, at each other. Two ships almost collided. One ship was spinning in circles as if the pilot had lost control. "The signal worked," Chris said quietly. "They are panicking." Nicole watched, feeling a strange mix of fascination and horror. The Valorians were experiencing something their species had never evolved to handle. Raw, primal, overwhelming fear. The kind that made hearts race and hands shake and thoughts scatter like leaves in wind. The kind that humans grew up learning to manage from the time they were children. But the Valorians had no experience with this. No training. No mental defenses. "Captain, we are receiving multiple transmissions from their fleet," Chris reported. "They are not directed at us. They are just broadcasting to each other. I think they are distress calls. Can you translate them?" Chris listened for a moment. The computer was working to turn the alien language into English. "The AI is trying. It is saying things like threat beyond measure and existence in peril and—" He paused. His voice dropped to a whisper. "And the humans live with this, they choose to live with this." The Valorian fleet was scattering now. Ships were breaking away in all directions. Their careful formation was completely abandoned. Two ships collided as they both tried to flee in the same direction. Both ships were damaged, but they kept fleeing anyway. "Should we pursue them?" Marcus asked. His hand was on the weapons controls. Nicole shook her head slowly. "No, let them run. Let them go home and remember this day. Let them tell their people what happened here." She opened a channel to Earth to Admiral Clark. "Admiral, the Phantom Array was successful. The Valorian fleet is retreating. Earth is secure." Clark's face appeared on the screen. He looked like he could not believe what he was hearing. Relief and disbelief fought for control of his expression. How did you do it?" "We taught them something, sir. We taught them what it means to be afraid. Really, truly afraid, like humans are afraid. And they could not handle it. They could not function. They could not fight. They could only run." Nicole looked back at the main screen. The Valorian ships were dots now, growing smaller as they fled faster and faster. Dr. Price was right. They saw our fear and thought it made us weak. They did not understand that living with fear every day is what makes us strong. They felt it for 5 minutes and fell apart. We feel it our whole lives and still build civilizations. "What happens now?" Clark asked. "Now we wait. We see if they come back. We see if they learned their lesson. We see if the galaxy has learned that humanity is not prey." The communication ended. Nicole sat in her chair and let out a long breath. Around her, the crew was celebrating quietly. They had won. They had survived. Earth was safe. But Nicole felt something else along with the relief. She felt sad for the Valorians. They had come here thinking they understood humanity. They had studied humans for decades, watched them, analyzed them. They saw the fear response and built a whole strategy around it. But they had not understood the other half of the equation. They saw that humans felt fear. They did not see that humans acted anyway. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was action despite fear. And that was something the Valorians did not have. When they felt true fear, they could only run. But when humans felt fear, they could choose. Run or fight. Hide or stand. Surrender or resist. The choice was what made the difference, Captain. Susan spoke up from navigation. We are receiving a message from the retreating fleet. It is the same Valorian you spoke to earlier. Put it on screen. The geometric face appeared again, but now the patterns were different, chaotic, confused, afraid. You did this, the Valorian said. You made us feel what you feel. Yes, Nicole replied simply. We did not know. We did not understand. You live with this every day? Every day of our lives. The Valorian was quiet for a long moment. We will not return. We will tell others. Humanity is not to be conquered. Your fear does not make you weak. It makes you... The Valorian paused, searching for words. It makes you something we have no word for. The word is human, Nicole said. And yes, it does. The transmission ended. This time it felt final. Nicole stood and stretched. Her muscles were sore from tension. All hands stand down from battle stations. Set course for Earth, let us go home. As the Defiance turned toward home, Nicole looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valorians were running. And somewhere out there, other species were watching. Other civilizations were learning that humanity was different. They had seen humans be afraid. Now they had seen humans be brave. And maybe, just maybe, they were starting to understand that those two things were not opposites. They were two parts of the same whole, the whole that made someone human.